So we have Loka-pavani with us, and she will be speaking about Bhagavad-gītā As It Is 440, and I will be handing over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for welcoming me again to speak about Bhagavad-gītā. For those who do not know who I am, my name is Loka-pavani Devi Dasi. Last time when I was speaking, I was actually living in Belgium in Radeš, but now I am part of Swiss Yatra. I am living in Winterthur. It's next to Zurich. Probably most of you know it. So, do you sing Jaya Radha Madhava, or you just...
You can sing if you want, but you will not be hearing us because otherwise we will have some sound difficulty. So if you want to, you can sing.
Yeah, okay, I will. So just for like introduction and purification. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, as was mentioned, we are going to continue with the Bhagavad-gītā. Today's verse is 440, and are you going to share it on the screen, or should I share it on the screen?
You can share it if you want.
Okay, just a second. So that it says that I cannot, but anyway, I mean, if you would like to see, then you can.
You should be able to share now.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Ajñaś cāśraddadhānaś saṁśayātmā vinaśyati nāyaṁ loko asti na paro, na sukham saṁśayātmanaḥ. Ajñaś cāśraddadhānaś saṁśayātmā vinaśyati, nāyaṁ loko asti na paro, na sukham saṁśayātmanaḥ. Ajñaś cāśraddadhānaś saṁśayātmā vinaśyati, nāyaṁ loko asti na paro, na sukham saṁśayātmanaḥ. So word by word. Ajñaḥ, a fool who has no knowledge in standard scriptures. Cha, and aśraddadhānaḥ, without faith in the revealed scriptures. Cha, also, saṁśaya, of doubts. Ātmā, a person. Vinaśyati, falls back. Na, never. Ayam, in this. Lokaḥ, world. Asti, there is. Na, nor. Paraḥ, in the next life. Na, not. Sukham, happiness. Saṁśaya, doubtful. Ātmanaḥ, of the person. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Purport. Out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad-gītā is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures, and some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. And even though others may have faith in scriptures like Bhagavad-gītā, they do not believe in or worship the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. Out of all the above mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and His revealed word find no good in this world, nor in the next. For them there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of the revealed scriptures with faith and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. So, to continue the discussion, which is actually very much connected with the verse that you were reading and discussing last Wednesday when Amarendra Prabhu was there. So, the first thing that was mentioned in the verse 439 is the faithful man. So, Krishna first explained about who is the faithful man and how he is dedicated to transcendental knowledge, and because of that he subdues his senses and he's therefore eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So you were mentioning Shraddhaman, the person who possesses faith. And now Krishna is speaking, actually, according to the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's mentioning 3 types of persons in this verse 440. So he's talking about the persons who are ignorant, and these are called ajñaś. So they have no knowledge of the scriptures, and they're considered as animals. The other type of persons are aśraddadhānaś, and they are without faith in the revealed scriptures. So these are actually the persons who have some knowledge of the Vedas, but they have no faith. They just cite it, or they know how to cite the verses, and they just interpret the knowledge that they find in the Vedic scriptures according to their understanding. And the third type of person is the person who actually has faith but is doubtful. And these are called saṁśaya. So 3 types of persons. And then Krishna says how for a doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. So I was exploring a little bit about what is actually doubt. So doubt is something that is definitely opposite of faith. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained actually in the verse 326:30 that doubt is part of, it's like a symptom of intelligence. So the verse goes that doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of the intelligence. So basically, it is concluded in the Shastras and generally that person who thinks also doubts in a certain way, and person who thinks and doubts shows that he has certain intelligence. And Srila Prabhupada, in many of his lectures, he said that that is very good for beginning, because at the beginning we have to inquire, we have to doubt, we have to question certain things. But there is also a point in which this doubting should stop in a way, and acceptance should follow. And this acceptance refers to the revealed scriptures, because we know that Vedas represent infallible knowledge. They are considered infallible because they are not coming from a conditioned soul, a human being who is not perfect, who has 4 deficiencies of being illusion, making mistake, cheating, and the 4th one I always forget. But so the point is that it doesn't come from an imperfect person. It comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, as we know, at least us who are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, that this knowledge, Vedic knowledge, was imparted by Krishna through the heart to Brahma. So this knowledge comes from the Supreme, and it is very, very old. And since it is infallible, and since it refers to the person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who represents the absolute truth, who is the cause of all causes, who is unlimited, who is very difficult to be known, we know that we are limited. We know that we are so small, that we are only the part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that we, at least because of our size, we cannot know someone who is so unlimited, who is so big. So therefore, we need to learn how to accept certain things that are given to us from the Vedic scriptures. And that is why Srila Prabhupada very much emphasized that the Bhagavad-gītā is called Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. This actually signifies this acceptance of the words of the authority. And sometimes conditioned souls, they have difficulties to accept the authority. which is actually quite natural in a way, considering the space and time in which we live. So we live in Kali Yuga, and the symptoms of Kali Yuga and characteristics of the Kali Yuga and the people who are living in the Kali Yuga are very much described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And there we have the descriptions of the politicians who are corrupt, who are using people, who are imposing taxes on them. We know that this age is full of people who are quarrelsome, who are lazy, misguided, and above all, always disturbed. So it's very difficult to find someone to follow in this age, even though we do that, because actually to be faithful to something, to have faith, is the natural inclination of the soul. So we are spirit souls, we are parts and parcels of Krishna. We have the same qualities as Krishna, but in quantity we are not the same as he is. And one of the qualities of the soul is that the soul possesses faith, Shraddha. And Bhagavad-gītā and Krishna, he confirms that, because he describes faith very much. I've forgotten which chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, but he describes that there is faith in the mode of ignorance, there is faith in the mode of passion, and there is faith in the mode of goodness. So that is something that's very natural and that very much exists in this world. But I'm not going to go into that, because that's actually not the topic of this verse. I just wanted to mention it. And so the point is that the opposite of the faith is doubt, and doubt as such is a symptom of intelligence. And actually in the purport of the verse that I mentioned from Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes what are the characteristics of the intelligence, among which is also doubt, Srila Prabhupada explains that doubt is one of the important functions of intelligence. And then he says that blind acceptance of something does not give evidence to intelligence. And this is something that Srila Prabhupada very much emphasized, that he emphasized that, and he wished that all of his disciples and students, that they are independently thoughtful, so that they don't blindly accept everything, that they try to question it in a certain way. And whenever they have doubt, there is a Vedic injunction which the followers of Bhagavad-gītā, Vaishnavas, and other transcendentalists follow, and that is that if you have doubt, then you should approach a guru. And this is something actually that is very much, the whole process of how to approach guru is a little bit explained in this chapter as such. Because first of all, Krishna starts the chapter by presenting this knowledge. He says where this knowledge comes from and how he actually imparted this knowledge unto the sun god, and then he describes the whole parampara of the Bhagavad-gītā. And he also describes himself, and he also talks about what is actually the duty of each person in this material world, how to perform our duties and our actions. And then he describes actually what is considered to be work, what is not what is considered to be action, what is considered to be non-action. So he's talking about all these things, like how to live in this world. And then he says that in order to understand this, and in order to have full knowledge of how to live here, how to know me, you have to approach a person who has seen the truth. So he's referring to the spiritual master, and he's saying that you should inquire from him submissively and render service unto him, because he will give you knowledge, because he has seen this absolute truth. So basically that means that when we are in doubt about our spiritual life, about the Vedic scriptures, Vedic injunctions, we should approach a guru. And when Srila Prabhupada was discussing doubt in this context, he was discussing it in the context of this verse and the Bhagavad-gītā as referring to transcendental knowledge, because there was a one-room conversation where he was talking about doubt, and then this professor, he asked him like about cynicism, about this, about that, and then he said like he stopped him in a way, because there is an authority for each subject matter, let's say it. He's an authority for transcendental subject matter. If you want to know about psychology, then you go to someone who knows about this. If you need an operation or you need a doctor because you're sick or you need to do something about it, then you go to the doctor. So there are experts in each field. So this doubt that is actually being explained here is the one which is referring to transcendental knowledge. And that is what Srila Prabhupada emphasized, and that is what actually Krishna also emphasized here, because he says that in the verses that will come, the next two verses that will come in your reading, he says, he actually describes how these doubts will be dissipated. And they will be dissipated by performing devotional service. So, which is service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these doubts actually are anarthas in our hearts because of our covering or our misunderstanding. But they're also a sign of, they can also be a sign of spiritual progress if they are dealt with in a way which is described in the Shastras. And that is, I have a doubt in my spiritual life, and I approach an authority, which is usually our guru, our spiritual master. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave an example, his personal example of how to do it. When he received the Maha Mantra of his spiritual master, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is described how he said he approached after chanting the Maha Mantra and after exhibiting all the symptoms, he realized that he's actually acting like a madman and that he's totally crazy. And he had doubts whether this what he was going through. And these doubts, of course, occurred because he was given an example to us how to act, because he, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no doubts. But he was exhibiting the doubt like, why am I crazy? Because of chanting this Maha Mantra. And then he approached his spiritual master and he told him, this mantra that you have given me, I am like a madman. Please help me if this is the way it should be. And then Srila Prabhupada, he explains in the purport how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually giving us an example of how to act. How every time we actually have a doubt in our spiritual life, we should approach an authority in whom we trust actually, and this authority, by the knowledge that he or she possesses, will dissipate that doubt. And it's always the knowledge, the transcendental knowledge, that is dissipating these doubts. And this knowledge is also not only theoretical knowledge, but it's also a person who applies the knowledge is needed. And that's why Krishna says in the chapter 4 that we should approach a spiritual master. So, and this is also something that is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam as well, because this dissipating of our doubts actually goes hand by hand with increasing the faith. So as the faith increases, the doubts disappear. But doubts are okay, and they're here for us so that we can improve ourselves, so that we can approach the spiritual master, so that we can inquire from him submissively with rendering the services, and so that we can gain the knowledge which will give us more faith. And then this faith will grow and grow. And I will describe a little bit these levels of faith. They're actually described in Madhurya Kandambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And this is something that I was listening from the lecture of my spiritual master. But the point that I wanted to make is that is that when we approach a spiritual master, we are not only searching for theoretical knowledge, but we are also searching for an example. And therefore, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam in 1st Canto, Chapter 2, that we should listen to the classes of Srimad Bhagavatam. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the book Bhagavatam, but we should also serve the person Bhagavata, because the person Bhagavata is the one who actually lives according to the principles that are described in the Bhagavatam. And this is actually when we have these two things, the knowledge and the exemplary person, then our doubts actually disappear. And the same was shown by Srila Prabhupada. I was listening to the lecture of my spiritual master. His name is Niranjan Swami, His Holiness Niranjan Swami. And he was describing how we have to picture the time in which Srila Prabhupada actually came to the West. I mean, most of you know how he came with Jaladuta over the Atlantic Ocean, only actually with full faith, the order of his spiritual master, and the box full of books, so that he can actually execute the order of his spiritual master and try to propagate Krishna consciousness in the West. And then he described how he came into a situation, a social situation in a way, in the America, where you had hippies. And hippies were a contra-culture at that time, and they were known for not accepting authority. And my spiritual master said that he also lived in one of those hippie communes. And he said that whenever anyone wanted to exhibit some kind of authority, whether, I don't know, make some rules about showering, cooking, cleaning, he would be kicked out because he was imposing himself as an authority, and hippies as such, they didn't accept it. Everyone lived the way he or she wanted to live there. So they really didn't like, they lived very freely. And then Srila Prabhupada came to Bovary, which was a very poor and hippie-like place. And he started to talk about Krishna consciousness to the hippies. And in a way, he was imposing an authority. But the difference was that he was actually not imposing his personal authority. He was imposing the authority of Krishna. He presented himself as a servant of Krishna. And whatever he spoke in the name of Krishna. And even when he was describing to the hippies how people who inquire about the absolute, who inquire about transcendence, who want to advance spiritually, they need a spiritual master. But never, ever did he say, I am actually your spiritual master, and actually you should accept me as your spiritual master. So little by little, because they actually liked him, and whatever he was speaking, they saw that he was practicing it. And therefore they had this faith in him. And when he proposed to them that they should get initiated, they accepted it because they had faith in him. So they thought like, well, if Swamiji thinks that I should do this, then I trust him, I will do it. So it's like we need this person Bhagavata and the book Bhagavata, which is actually the knowledge that he carries, to surrender in a way to authority, and also to that authority can dissipate our doubts. So this is actually, by Krishna's mercy, of course, but this is what Srila Prabhupada succeeded in to do in America. So he accomplished that people who never wanted to live under any authority actually accepted authority. And they accepted him as an authority because he was the representative of Krishna. And Krishna here was the central point. So this is just one example how the doubt of a person who actually doubts the authority in a way accepts it in the end, because he has an example of the person who lives by transcendental knowledge what he preaches. So this is the way, the only way that doubts in spiritual life can be eliminated. And as I mentioned, there are like levels of faith which are described in Madhurya Kandambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So at the beginning of this lecture, we said how Shraddha or faith is inherent in all of us because we are spirit souls. It's totally natural that we have faith. So therefore, we receive a Bhagavad-gītā, maybe we hear some kirtan, we meet some devotee, and somehow this interests us, and this faith somehow that maybe there's something here grows, but still we have some doubts. And then this is like the stage of Shraddha. Shraddha then evolves into another level of faith, which is sadhu sangha. So the sadhus, the devotees, they actually help us with their example and their knowledge, and especially if they have realized knowledge, like practical applications and realizations of what is written in the scriptures, they can help us build our faith and eliminate the doubts that we have. And in this sadhu sangha, we hear about Krishna, whether from scriptures, we chant the Mahamantra, we sing kirtans, we honor prasadam, we can also learn how to worship the deity. So, I mean, all of you are devotees, so you know that by association, if you meet someone who is so enthusiastic and very inspiring, automatically you will become inspired and, I don't know, fired up to do whatever this person is doing, or you will be interested in what he's reading and what he's saying, and you would like to know this or that. And especially because Krishna is in our hearts, we can feel when someone is saying certain things with certain realizations. So this also builds up our faith. And also what is very important in eradicating the doubts is that if we do something ourselves also practically, which means that we actually do what these persons with whom we associate are doing. So we practice the same things as they do. Because we know that Srila Prabhupada many times explained how spiritual life, this Krishna consciousness, is actually very much scientific. So whatever we do, actually whatever we hear about, if we apply it, we will have certain realizations. So in that sense, Krishna consciousness is science, because by application of certain things, we can realize actually that the truth. We can realize, of course, in the end, Krishna, but this is like a puzzle. Little by little, the dots are connecting to themselves to this greater picture where we will then have the total realization of our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to go back to the sadhu sangha. So in this sadhu sangha, we associate with these devotees and we try to do certain things as them. And then maybe there we find a certain person who is a pure devotee who we accept as our spiritual master, and then we take initiation. And this is also a level of bhajana kriya in which the faith again increases. And then by accepting the spiritual master as an authority, by following the instructions that he gives to us, which we practically apply in our lives, all doubts disappear. And even if we have doubts in the practice of our Krishna consciousness, again, we can approach this spiritual master and then inquire from him submissively, and he can give us knowledge by which we can eradicate these doubts. But there is also one more thing that we should not forget. And that is that when we are searching for Krishna, Krishna is actually not very far. So Krishna is in our hearts. And I found some, because I was reading some lectures, some nice verses which prove this point. Two of them are from the Bhagavad-gītā, and one of them is from Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavad-gītā 10:10 says that, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The next verse is 1861. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. So the Supreme Lord Krishna is situated in our hearts. And as I said, we are approaching a spiritual master according to the instruction of Krishna. But it is actually Krishna, by his mercy, who is giving us the Guru. And then the Guru, by his mercy, is giving us Krishna. So they are interrelated. And it's not only that this person Bhagavatam, to whom we gave our trust and who we follow and whose instructions we follow, it is not only he that leads us, but also Krishna in the heart. But as we know from Krishna conscious philosophy, that those two persons are actually the same, because the external manifestation of Paramatma is our Guru, and Paramatma is in our heart is the internal manifestation of Krishna. So both of them are acting in our spiritual life, and if we are sincere, they are eradicating all the doubts. And especially today, some devotees or some people who are not initiated, sometimes they say like, well, you know, in the past there has been this or that, and sometimes many devotees, they got disappointed by the authorities that they were following. And Srila Prabhupada actually explained this very nicely. I mean, very nicely. He said the truth. He said, like, it's you're searching for a guru, and the guru doesn't have to always be a Diksha guru. It can be some authority that you like and you follow, because there are such people in our movement. And then you realize actually that this is a pseudo guru, pseudo teacher. And he just said, well, that is your misfortune. It's the same as you're looking for a doctor because you want to heal something, you're sick in some way, but you get a pseudo doctor, and that is like your misfortune, like your karma. But then he says, Krishna is in your heart, and if you are sincere, he will send you the real person who will give you the right knowledge and in whom you will gain trust. So it is Krishna actually who puts us in all this situation for some reason. Sometimes we cannot understand, but it's also the test of our sincerity, whether how much we want Krishna, how much we are honest, and actually what we are actually looking for. And when I was reading about it and listening about it, I was thinking how I read also the book about Ramanuja Acharya, about his life, and he had a guru who tried to kill him actually. And Lord Narayan and Lakshmi Devi, they saved him in the forest from this person. And anyway, there's a whole story behind it. But it's not like, it just, Krishna puts us sometimes in these situations just to test us. But he's always in our hearts. And if we stay true to the real goal, and that is to actually become pure devotees and to establish our relationship with Krishna and to develop pure love for him, he will guide us. Because with the shining lamp, he who is situated in the heart, with the shining lamp of knowledge, he dissipates the darkness born out of ignorance. So he's there, and he will always lead us, and he will always dissipate all our doubts. And to mention one more verse which talks about this, it's the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, again, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17, which is a very known verse, which states that Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and a benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So he's here, and he reacts when we chant his name, when we read about him, when we try to remember him. And just like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in the first verse of Shishashtakam, Chaitudarpanam Arjanam, these holy names are cleaning our hearts. Krishna is there with the broom, removing all the impurities. And the impurities that he removes are also doubts. So this is also what is removed by the hearing process. And what is interesting is that this faith, this shraddha, is faith in something that is beyond. Why is it said that it is beyond? Because it's transcendental. And we all know that Krishna cannot be perceived by material senses. And then the acharyas, the Srimad Bhagavatam, they all point that he can be known through the transcendental sound. He's present in the transcendental sound. And in Canto 1, it is described how there are various rasas. And we know which ones they are. Then there's a neutral rasa, a servitorship or dasya, then friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love with Krishna. So 5 rasas. And Srila Prabhupada describes in Srimad Bhagavatam how all of them can be experienced through sound. So I found that quite interesting. And that's why it's emphasized, I would dare to say, very often, if not each page actually, because Srila Prabhupada explains many things in his purpose. So it's always just like hear, chant, all the time. And this is actually the process which will eliminate all the doubts. Because even when we approach the spiritual master, we inquire and we listen. And it's always about the listening. And even, the guru is the one who has perfectly heard from his authority. So this hearing process is very, very important, and is the one who will eradicate all the doubts that we carry in ourselves. So to come back again to the levels of faith. So we stopped at bhajana kriya. So we follow the instructions of the guru. And what do? We hear most of the time. We remember, we chant, we worship the deities. And then there is anartha-nivriti, which means the elimination of all inauspicious things in our heart. So they're all eliminated by this process. And then actually anartha-nivriti and nishta stage are very close, because anartha-nivriti means that I think 90% of the anarthas is eliminated. And then we come to the nishta stage where we are fully convinced, where we have full conviction, full faith that this process that we actually established our relationship with Krishna. And then we go further with developing the taste, the attachment, the spiritual emotions, and then finally prema. And prema is actually the perfect stage of faith, where all the doubts are eliminated. And the person who doubts, the doubts, I was listening to also one lecture where it is said that the doubts are like brakes. Like you want to go somewhere, but you cannot go there because you brake all the time. And you brake because you always think, oh, there's some kind of a danger here. I should not go here. Or I should not go there. I should stop here and not move. So you're not moving anywhere. So that's why it is said in this verse that you cannot attain any happiness in this life or in the next, because there is no improvement for you. You cannot proceed. You just get stuck in your own conceptions, and nobody can eradicate these doubts from you. And the same is even in so-called material life. If you always doubt everything that you do, you will end up anywhere. It will end up nowhere, and you will definitely not be happy. So some faith has to be given somewhere so that we can proceed, so we can learn, so we can see certain things. And the same is in spiritual life. So as verse 39 said, that the person who has faith, all the knowledge will be revealed to him. The person who has doubts, he will fall down, and he will not have any happiness in this life or in the next. And then in the next verses, Krishna will talk about how to eliminate these doubts, and this is by performing devotional service, which we just mentioned and said that mostly it's hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is the process that cleanses the heart, eliminates the doubts, and actually takes us forward to prema, to establishing our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And yeah, so this is the points that I had, and I would like to leave now sometimes maybe for some discussion or comments or questions, or maybe you had some thoughts about everything you heard.
So if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box, or you can just, as we're not too many people now, you can just unmute yourselves by clicking onto the microphone icon in the at the bottom left corner of your screen. That is if you're on a computer. I don't know where it is when you're joining by mobile phone, but somewhere there is a microphone icon. You can click on it, and then you should be heard, and then you can speak and ask your question. I can see some people have already turned on their cameras, so maybe some of them, and they have been listening, I have seen it, or I've seen that they have been following the entire lecture, so maybe they have a question or a comment to make, or some remark.
So I have a question. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Thanks a lot for your wonderful lecture. Really liked it. So Mataji, I have a question regarding the happiness, what is mentioned in these verse, like Kunti Devi or Maya, Yashoda, or you say Radharani or Pandavas or Bhishma Dev, all they are kind of like great devotees of Lord, right? And they had no doubt about the presence or about the opulence about Lord. They had the perfect knowledge, but after that they had to suffer in this material life. So yeah, I just want to ask that, yeah, when these kind of devotees are suffering in this material world, so how we can like think about the happiness and try to go forward in the spiritual life and simultaneously think about the material happiness. So that is my question, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your question. Well, first of all, I would like to say how we should also define what is happiness. So when we talk about happiness, we're not talking about material happiness, definitely. We're talking about spiritual happiness, which is inherent to every soul, because the soul is ananda, full of bliss. So when we talk about actually spiritual happiness, we're talking about ananda. And the happiness that is actually mentioned in this verse is the happiness of the soul. So we, even though conditioned, can have this happiness in this life and in the next, even though we are embodied. So even though we are embodied, if we one day, by mercy of Guru and Krishna, attain full Krishna consciousness, and we develop prema to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it doesn't matter whether we are in this world or we're in the spiritual world. For a devotee, it is the same. And the calamities that the Pandavas were going through, even Yashoda, because Yashoda was not going through the calamities of the Pandavas in the sense of somebody trying to kill them all the time, but Yashoda was suffering because of separation of Krishna. So each devotee actually, in the Leelas of Krishna, which are manifested on this earth when he comes here and when he, sorry, I can't find the word, incarnates, yes. When he incarnates on this planet, they all perform Leelas with Krishna for a certain purpose. So the Pandavas had to suffer because Krishna came with the mission to eliminate the demons and to protect the pious. And actually, through all the hardships that they went through, Krishna was always there. And as you remember, Queen Kunti, even though she suffers, she prays, let these calamities happen again and again, because by going through them again and again, it means I will see you again and again, and by seeing you, I will remember you, and therefore I will no longer meet with birth and death. So that's the whole point of our lives here, to perform Krishna Bhakti and go back home, back to Godhead, and establish our relationship with Krishna, because actually in this world there is no happiness. This is Mrityu Loka, place of death, however that sounds a little bit scary, but that's the fact. And we, by taking birth, we die every day, so therefore automatically we're not very happy persons, because the outcome that awaits us is not very nice. So in that sense, speaking about happiness, material happiness, there's no way. So we have to have a transcendental understanding of things, how things happen in this material world, and who actually we are, and that we are not this body. And there is also one more thing. I mean, when you talk about sufferings of devotees, there are so many layers. This is just one that I mentioned. Another layer is that in some way, by devotees suffering, Krishna glorifies them, because he puts them in certain situations in which their qualities come out. We were, for instance, talking about Prahlad Maharaj, because yesterday was Narasimha Chaturdashi, and my friend who was giving a lecture, he was speaking how, I mean, Prahlad Maharaj was thrown into snakes, thrown from a mountain. He was supposed to be squashed by the elephants. Then his father personally wanted to kill him. I don't know whatever happened. So, and it's like a question like, why is Krishna putting this pure devotee in such a situation? But he's also showing an example of a person who has firm faith. This is, for instance, the stage of faith that Prahlad Maharaj has is the perfect stage of faith, where he totally is convinced in the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, that the purpose of life is to worship Vishnu, and that's it for him. And Vishnu is everywhere, Krishna is everywhere. And because of this faith, Lord Narasimhadev appeared out of a pillar. But the whole situation did not happen only that he exhibits his power and that he kills Hiranyakashipu, but also to show the qualities of the devotees, because actually they show by example how we should live our life in this world, how we should be tolerant, more humble than a blade of grass, and more tolerant than the tree. That is what they are. So through all these hardships, they actually showed that example, and the example of compassion, for instance, because Prahlad Maharaj was threatened so much with so many dangers, and they tried to kill him so many times, but still he tried to stop Narasimhadev from killing his father, saying like that he doesn't want any harm for him. So all the things always happen for a reason. Yashoda was suffering so that her love towards Krishna can be increased, and also the gopis were suffering for the same reason, and also to show the world who they are, what kind of love actually they exhibit towards Krishna. And in the same way, the Pandavas also suffered in that sense, to show the world the example of how to live in this world, because everyone here will suffer in some way. So to speak about happiness in this world is impossible. And therefore, when we talk about happiness, we should talk about spiritual bliss. And that is actually something that Krishna guarantees, this kind of happiness he guarantees. But the happiness in the world of, I don't know, living here jolly and safe, that's never going to happen. So therefore, we should not be doubtful, because even if we don't go through the spiritual path, we will not be happy, because there is no happiness in this world. So better go through the spiritual path by building up our faith, and then come to the spiritual bliss, ananda, which will give us this happiness that we are hankering for. And it's something that we cannot comprehend, this happiness, because it is unlimited, it is ever increasing, and I don't think we have experienced it yet in this world, but this is what awaits us. So I hope I answered your question in a way.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, thank you for clearing my doubt. And please bless me so that I can have faith on Lord. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
May Krishna bless you, but you know, it's like we actually bless each other by speaking about Krishna. Like Krishna Katha is the most important thing actually that we should do in our life. And this is where we clear our doubts, where we actually get our blessings, because Krishna then acts in our hearts. So, and I just wanted to mention one final thing, why it's so important to work on our faith, and why faith as such is so important, because faith is very much connected to the holy name. And it's a song that many acharyas and spiritual masters love, and that we sing for the appearance of Lord Nityananda. So it's a song of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, where he's explaining the marketplace of the holy name. So the only currency to buy the holy name of the Lord is to have faith. And this faith, this faith in spiritual life has a certain characteristic, is that we have certain faith, and then we invest the faith in this example, in the holy name. We invest in the holy name, and what do we get from it? The increase of faith. And then we invest this increased faith again into the chanting of the holy name, and then the faith just increases and increases and increases. And that is the only currency that we have to pay in this age. This also talks about how much we are actually unfortunate, because we don't have this faith, but everything is given to us, the holy name, for free. And yeah, everything is very simple, and everything is like put on the platter. Always, all we have to do is take it and have this faith, and then build our faith. And even when we don't have faith, what we should do, we should go to the association of devotees and just listen, and then something will happen. I'm sure that most of you definitely experienced that. So I'll stop here if there's nothing else.
So if there are no other questions or remarks or comments, then we shall close this session for today. Martina writes in the chat, faith means to let go, give up control, and we need to be brave.
Yes.
It's also something, there is somewhere in the Bible, there is a statement, be bold, which means be brave, have courage. So somewhere God, I think God is speaking in the Bible and says to be courageous and not to be afraid. So as we're coming to an end, I would like to give a brief outlook on the next weeks. Next Wednesday, we are planning and are hoping to have Sadashiva Prabhu with us. And after that, the week after that, we will have Krishna Prema Rupa. That would be the 9th of June, Krishna Prema Rupa. And then on the 16th of June, we might have Hari Vilas Prabhu. And we will also be participating, for those of you who speak German, in the 10th I think it's mirrored anyway, the 10th long night of religions, which is an interfaith event here in Berlin. And there will be various discussions online, various Zoom meetings, and a very special guest who will be representing our temple will be speaking there. And you can also join. You will find further information in our newsletter and on our social media. And with that, we come to an end, and we thank Loka-pavani, Devi Dasi, for being with us again and for speaking so nicely from the Bhagavad-gītā. Always a very well-prepared talk. We have had her, I think, 3 or 4 times with us. And yeah, it's always very nice to listen to you, because you, yeah, I can see that you are well prepared. Some devotees, I remember from my very early days, they used to give lectures, yeah, without specifically preparing for the lecture. And they said, some said, yeah, it's the best lectures are the ones that are not prepared. It depends. Some people can do that, some maybe not, but I think preparing is always good. So it's always very nice to have you with us, and we would be glad to have you again with us sometime in the near future. And also, of course, we thank all of you who have joined and who have participated by listening, by making comments, either in the chat box or via audio, asking questions. Thank you very much. And with that, I wish you a good night and see you next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.